It was just another ordinary Thursday afternoon when the incident happened. The mall was bustling, filled with families, teenagers hanging out, and busy shoppers moving from one store to the next. But amidst the chatter and the bright lights, a moment was unfolding that would soon change the lives of many, and no one knew it yet. A man dressed in simple jeans and a worn-out jacket entered the mall. He had the look of someone who had seen the world, but also someone who had lived through struggles most could only imagine. His name was Julius Banks. To the casual observer, he was just another veteran, perhaps retired and enjoying some peace. Little did they know, he wasn't just any man. He was the owner of the entire mall, a billionaire who had built an empire from the ground up. Julius walked through the polished glass doors of the mall, heading straight for the food court. The smell of freshly baked pretzels and coffee filled the air, and he couldn't help but smile. His mind, though, was elsewhere. He had been dealing with the stresses of running a business empire, but today, he was here to relax, to experience the simplicity of life outside the boardroom. The last thing he expected was to be kicked out by mall security. Julius made his way to a bench in the corner of the food court, far from the crowds. As he sat down, he noticed a security guard walking toward him. The guard was a young man, tall and muscular, with a no-nonsense look on his face. Julius didn't think much of it at first, but then the guard spoke. "Excuse me, sir. I'm going to have to ask you to leave," the guard said in a tone that was both dismissive and firm. Julius blinked in confusion. "I'm sorry, what?" "You're not allowed to sit here. It's a private seating area for paying customers only," the guard continued, his arms crossed, blocking Julius's way. Julius stood up slowly, still taken aback. "I'm just resting. I'm not bothering anyone." The security guard didn't seem to care. "Doesn't matter. You're not allowed to be here without making a purchase. Please leave." Julius, now fully realizing what was happening, took a deep breath. He had seen this before. People treated him differently, dismissively, based on how he looked, not knowing who he was or what he had achieved. But this was the last straw. "Is that so?" Julius asked, his voice calm, yet with a hint of authority. "Yeah, it is," the guard said, motioning to the door with a swift hand. Julius stood there for a moment, gathering his thoughts. He had worked hard to get to where he was. He wasn't going to be humiliated or dismissed like this. The guard's arrogance was palpable, and Julius was starting to feel that familiar rush. He wasn't going to let this go. "Do you know who I am?" Julius asked. The guard shook his head, clearly unimpressed. "No, and I don't care. You're just another person who doesn't understand the rules." Julius sighed. He had expected some resistance, but this was more than he was willing to tolerate. He calmly reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, dialing a number he knew by heart. "Mr. Simmons." Julius spoke firmly when the call was answered. "I need you to call the mall manager. Tell him Julius Banks needs to speak to him now." The mall manager, Mr. Simmons, knew Julius well. Julius had purchased the mall years ago, and although Julius rarely visited, his ownership was a known fact among the mall's top brass. However, the security guard had no idea. To him, Julius was just another person causing a scene. "I've been asked to leave, Mr. Simmons. Can you handle this, please?" Julius asked. Mr. Simmons hesitated for a moment before replying. "Of course, Mr. Banks. I'll be right there." Meanwhile, the security guard was growing impatient. "I told you to leave," he repeated, his tone escalating. "I'm going to call backup if you don't leave now." Julius simply raised his hand, signaling the guard to stop. He turned to the people around him, his calm demeanor contrasting with the tense situation. "I think it's time I introduce myself," he said, his voice carrying through the food court. "I am Julius Banks. I own this mall, and I am the reason you're even employed." The room fell silent. The security guard's eyes widened in disbelief. He had been kicking out the owner of the entire mall. A sense of panic set in as he realized the gravity of his mistake. But it was too late. He had already crossed a line. The damage had been done. Within minutes, Mr. Simmons, the mall manager, arrived at the scene. He rushed to Julius's side, his face pale, clearly embarrassed. "Mr. Banks, Mr. Simmons began, but Julius held up his hand. "No need to apologize, Mr. Simmons," Julius said with a chuckle. "I'm sure your security guard was just doing his job. However, I think he needs a lesson in who exactly he's working for." Julius turned to the guard, who was still standing frozen in place, unable to speak. "I don't mind a little security, but it's a problem when it's misdirected," Julius said with a cold smile. "Do you know who I am?" The guard swallowed hard, his voice faltering. I didn't mean to." "No, you didn't mean to," Julius replied, his voice sharp. "But you made a mistake, and now we all need to deal with it." Julius wasn't angry. He was beyond that. He was disappointed. Disappointed that even in a place he owned, his identity was reduced to nothing more than a stereotype. Disappointed that people couldn't see beyond the surface to recognize the person standing in front of them. Mr. Simmons, trying to salvage the situation, turned to the guard. "We'll have to have a discussion about this," he said sternly. "You should have known better." The guard nodded, his face flush with embarrassment. Julius, however, wasn't interested in making an example of the young guard. He had faced much worse in his life and knew how to handle situations like these. He gave a small sigh and turned back to Mr. Simmons. "I'll handle this with the staff later," Julius said. "For now, I just want to sit down and enjoy my afternoon. Let's get some coffee, shall we?" The rest of the afternoon passed in a more relaxed atmosphere. Mr. Simmons, ever apologetic, arranged for Julius to be given a private area, far from the chaos of the food court. The irony wasn't lost on Julius. He had just been kicked out of his own property by the very people he employed. As he sat back with his coffee, watching the busy mall around him, Julius reflected on his life. He had come a long way from the man who had served his country, faced countless struggles, and watched the world change. He had worked his way up from nothing, driven by the idea that one day he would own something of his own. That dream had grown into something bigger, owning not just businesses, but a whole mall. A legacy. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Yet, moments like these were reminders of just how far society still had to go in terms of recognizing potential, breaking stereotypes, and understanding true success. Later, as he was preparing to leave, he spoke to Mr. Simmons one more time. "Make sure this doesn't happen again. People like that guard need to understand that respect doesn't come from the clothes you wear or the color of your skin. It comes from who you are as a person, and I expect my staff to know that." Mr. Simmons nodded, taking notes. "It won't happen again, Mr. Banks." "Good," Julius replied. "Now, I'll let you get back to managing the mall. I've got a lot more to do." As he left the mall that afternoon, Julius couldn't help but smile. The experience had been a reminder that no matter how much you achieve, some people will always see you as just another person, unless you show them who you truly are. And that's exactly what he planned to do. The mall continued to buzz with activity, and Julius's legacy was clear. He had earned every bit of respect, and now, more than ever, he knew how important it was to break down barriers and never be underestimated. If you believe in breaking stereotypes and showing the world what you're truly capable of, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of triumph and perseverance. Leave a comment below and let us know how you've overcome challenges and shown your true potential.